with the differences between the qualitative and quantitative approaches. And we in detail dealt with action research and a little bit about case study design. Today, we are going to discuss about a research paradigm which we can't exclusively fit into the ambit of qualitative research. For any design, regardless of the design, theoretical research is the spine. So every research will have a theory. So I'm going to focus on theoretical research. So the main objective of this class is, by the end of the class, I would just demystify the uh, problems and the kind of misconceptions or the speculations that are associated with theoretical research. So, what is theoretical research and how to apply theory in the context of your study, and how to look at theoretical research as a kind of a methodology. So, the paradigm which I'm going to discuss today is not a paradigm that can fit only into a qualitative design. Theoretical research can fit into both qualitative and quantitative paradigms, as well as the mixed methods approaches. One common distinction is any kind of qualitative research, as we discussed earlier, is based on a kind of an interpretive approach to a particular area, where it is based on interpretations and your views. Whereas quantitative research is based on numbers, which are empirical by nature. So, what I'm going to do in this class on qualitative research, I'll just tell you my overview, my plan for the day. I'm just going to raise a number of questions to reflect, because I am not prepared any PPT per se. So, I'm just going to raise a number of questions related to theoretical research. And I'm just going to answer the questions, and I'm also going to help you reflect on those questions with 25 to 20 questions. And once you reflect on all these questions, you will have a clear idea of what a theoretical research is. Theoretical research can be looked at as a method in itself in isolation, because if you look at studies in literature, uh, a scholar will take a particular theory, and only based on the theory he will pivot all his arguments. For example, transcendentalism as a theory, you look at the transcendentalists, starting from the American transcendentalists to the English school of transcendentalism, and approach an author's work based on those tenets or the premises. So literature will have only theory throughout the entire work. So they will take two or three works of the author, evaluate or interpret the author or read the author deeply based on those theories. So that's a kind of a theoretical research. So theoretical research is a kind of a method in itself. So you, for example, eco-criticism, eco-feminism, feminism, psychoanalysis, these concepts play a significant role in trying to write your whole thesis. So this is what we are going to do. So my plan today is to tell you what theoretical research is, to raise a number of questions and help you to clear the air on the preconceptions and speculations on theoretical research. Finally, I have downloaded two thesis samples, one from ELT and one from literature. And I would like to show you how theory is applied in the context of research, because we have been talking a lot about application of concepts. But if I show you the live samples, you will have an all encompassing or a bird's eye view of how to proceed with the theoretical background, how to apply. So my fundamental aim of these kind of lectures is not to actually discuss on the what, because as a reader, as an advanced reader, I'm sure we can all read about the what's. So I would like to focus on the how rather than the what, because what is just a motivational aspect, and all advanced readers like you can understand the subtle nuances of any text. So my objective today is not to focus on what, but primarily focus on how. So let's move on. So this is a context of my discussion today. To repeat, I am going to discuss about theoretical research as a design. A. B. How to apply the theory in the context of your study. C. I have just taken two samples today to show you. One sample from ELT and show you how the researcher has applied the theory. And after that, I'm just going to show you a sample on how a particular researcher has applied multiculturalism. So I just want to cater to your specific requirements rather than given one size fits all, lecture. So this is a plan, and ultimately, after I finish my lecture, I'm just going to give you, show you a wonderful article. I would say there's a groundbreaking article on how to apply theory, and that is for extra reading, because it's an insult to read, which is already there, or to explain what is already there. So finally, I'll just give it to you for you to read yourself. So let's start with the process, and let's start with the how. So let me share my screen. My share is a simple Word document, and I have raised a number of questions for you to reflect. So it's only self-reflection questions today, and by the end of these 20 questions I finish, you will have an overall view of what a theoretical research is. Am I making myself clear? Or my objectives clear for the day?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, yes, sir. Yes.
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 So let me share my screen and show you the questions to reflect. And let's take one question at a time, reflect on the question, see how it can be applied in the context of your research. So before I start, there is only one prerequisite. The prerequisite is your research problem which you have already articulated, your research question which you have articulated, and your research topic. Keep these three things, because all our discussions today is just going to pivot around these areas. So have these kind of prerequisites in your mind. What is your research area? What is your research problem? And most importantly, what is the theoretical base for your research? So these are the three things that you need to have some kind of grounding, not a firm grounding, but some kind of grounding. So here we go. Am I sharing the Word document?
Yes, yes, it's
Oh.
visible now. Yes, it's
Yes,
visible.
yes. So let's start with, as I said, little bit of grounding on what is the theoretical framework. See, a theoretical framework is based on certain concepts or principles to approach a particular area. For example, it's, as I said, it's like a blueprint of a building or a floor plan. Before you construct a building, you need a blueprint. So a theoretical framework is a blueprint for your entire dissertation or your thesis or your research. So theoretical framework are the principles on which your research is focused on. Let's start with what are theoretical assumptions. Let me give you an example. Well, let's say somebody asks me what's the time, and I just look at the sunset and say it should be 6 o'clock. So this is an assumption that I make, because I may be right, but based on the position of the sun, I might say that it is 6 o'clock. I may be right, but it is my assumption. So I assume. So every researcher will bring certain assumptions to your research, and your assumptions could be based on certain principles, and all your research should be based on theoretical assumptions. You need not verify it. It's not necessary for us to know if it is right or wrong, but it is better to have some assumptions. So assumptions are not measurable, because it said the time should be 6 o'clock. It's not measurable. But if I look at my watch and say the time is exactly 7:15 now, then it is measurable, because it can be measured in terms of the clock. So the clock is an instrument that authenticates my data, that verifies my statement. So starting from assumption, we will move on to specificity, but it is always good to start with theoretical assumptions. So that is called as theory, and it refers to every researcher now as some time to reflect. Think about, each of you think about your topic again, and you all have told me that you are bringing certain theories to your research. Let us say, multiculturalism or task based or communicative language teaching. You may have a rough idea of what it is. For example, if you say cross culturalism, or if I talk about multiculturalism in people who have immigrated, immigration and multiculturalism, I would argue, I will have an assumption that, you know, any particular person, if he goes to a foreign land, alien land, he takes a long time for him to get himself acclimatized with the ethos, the language, with their culture, and every culture for that matter is a confluence of many people, or a confluence of various customs. And if I take a particular author and look at the multicultural lens, based on his place, if I read 4 or 5 novels, and how my characters portray the cultural differences, the ethos, how my characters struggle for identity to embrace to new cultures. If I make these kind of presumptions before I begin my work, these are assumptions. Okay, I'll give you another example for assumption. For example, let us take theories which most of you are applying, task-based language teaching. So your assumption is, if a particular student is deeply engaged by different kind of tasks, by different kind of activities that can lead to learning outcomes, then the teaching will be very effective. So you will go with this kind of assumptions. So step A, you need not know the theory inside out, but you need to know what is the fundamental premise of the theory, an overview of your theory, and that is called as assumption. An assumption is a kind, it need not be, it can differ from people to people. It need not be so deep at this point. At this point, you can have a general overview on the theory you chose, and approach your work in that perception is called as theoretical assumption. I'm sure that all of you will have certain assumptions in the beginning of your work. I hope you have understood what assumption is. Can one of you articulate the assumptions that you take to your research? This is what I assume. Okay, I'm using this theory, and this is what I assume. I'm just using this theory. I assume that is just going to lead to those outcomes. So that is called as a theoretical assumption. So you take certain assumptions with you. Do you get my first point?
Yes, sir.
So yeah, the first point is based on taking certain preconceived notions to your research, and they need not be final. They are quite iterative. They keep changing in course of time. As you read more and more and more, as you dig deeper and deeper, you will understand the subtle nuances, the finer threads of the fabric. But at this juncture, you are approaching your text with your preconceived opinions based on your reading, which need not be deep. It can also be shallow. So that I'm sure that every researcher at this stage will only carry assumptions because you haven't verified your assumptions. So choose your theory and write down what is your understanding of your theory. This is a kind of a rough, kind of a homework we should do, or a kind of a mental. I'll just share this document because it's a very important document of 20 questions. So first thing you go, choose a particular theory, say whatever TBLT or CLT or whatever the theory is, what are your assumptions about the theory? So that is the first question when it comes to the theory. Secondly, can you define them exactly? This is very important theoretical research. Now I'll show you a document a little later. This particular author, maybe I will. This particular author, as I just took maybe at 15 minutes back before I started this class at 6:45. I just downloaded it from Sodh Ganga. I was just making a. I just wanted to pivot my argument based on uh, your topic. So I typed the keyword multiculturalism and came across cross-cultural confrontation. So second point, I thought I can argue this point using this particular concept. Now, this particular researcher clearly defines what is cross-cultural confrontation in two paragraphs about how people face cross-cultural confrontation when they immigrate. So when they migrate from one place to another, when they find it difficult to embrace culture, and how migration enriches their social process, how there are communal clashes, and how there is a clash of ideologies, and how they find it very difficult to embrace different cultures. So my second point is, how would you define? See, you have certain assumptions. For example, I am working on a particular theory. Let us say a cognitive theory of multimedia learning, CTML. Now, first I will write my assumptions when I begin my work. Second thing, I will define it. And how do I define? I will see how others have defined it, how other writers have defined it, and then I'll define the theory in my own words. Any field that cannot be defined is a field that it is not fully grown. So uh, there are sufficient words in any language to clearly define your concepts. So if somebody asks you, what is the theory you're working on, and you say that I'm working on multiculturalism, can you define the theory in two sentences? If you can give specific definition, and based on what? Based on other definitions, probably you can coin your own definition. You can contribute, you can start your contribution in this way because you are the one who actually defined it. A lot of people have defined, but probably you felt that that particular field cannot be pinned down to a particular definition, so you come out with your own definition. So this is another homework for self reflection. All of you choose your particular theory, go back home and define your theory. Clearly define what your theory is. What is a theory? Define it. If I were to ask you to define your theory in two sentences, how would you define? So definition is always specific. It's not a kind of a roundabout explanation of something. You need to be quite specific. So see if you can fulfill this parameter. So reflect. Actually, it would be really fantastic to do these activities immediately after the discussions. For example, first question, type down your assumptions. Second question, give your own definition. But if we do that, maybe we will not have ample time. So that's why I mean, just because we are part-time learners, I leave it to your reflection. Okay, so point two, define. So clearly define your field, and your definition should be based on others' definitions. So as I said, in this work, the author beautifully defines what cross-culturalism, cross-cultural confrontations are, and he highlights what different people have said about cross-cultural confrontation, and also discussed many authors how they have clearly defined. So that is how you need to start your theory with. So question number 2, right? Now I am moving on to question 3 for you to reflect about theory. Question 3 is, can I make repeated observations of a single theory? What does it mean? Well, it means, as I told you, when I was just searching, I just do some groundwork before my classes. At least for half an hour, I do some. When I did some groundwork for this class, I again went to Sodh Ganga and typed the keyword task-based language teaching, and I want to see how researchers have applied this particular concept. And there were a lot of theses actually. There were even recent theses of 2021, and most of these theses, three or four I should say, if you want to just go and watch today, they are all based on task based, and they all talks about speaking skills and task based approach. And when I saw it, this is called as repeated observations. Many researchers in the past have applied task based language teaching in the context of their study. One researcher has used it at primary level, another researcher perhaps at tertiary level, another researcher at secondary level. Maybe one researcher might have discussed about one micro aspect of speaking. So you will come across subtle differences, but the essence is the same. So all these researchers are actually making repeated observations of a single theory. So can you do that? Can I make, this is one frequent question, this theory? Because see, one important word in research is, people say it's an exhausted field. What do you mean by exhausted field? Exhausted field refers to there's no more information, there's no more finding, you can't come out with any more novelty. So, but can I make repeated observations of a single theory? Of course you can, as long as you are discussing a new variable, as long as you are actually placing your arguments in a different context. When I say new variable, different people would have approached generally speaking skills, communication skills. But if nobody has worked on prosodic features, if nobody has worked on phonological features, if nobody has worked on any one aspect of speaking, then perhaps you might make those observations. So, question number 3 for today is, can I make repeated observations of a single theory? Of course, you can if your context is different. Now, let's just go to the fourth question. To break the monotony, I want you to reflect on the question and answer me. Maybe we'll have some casual discussions and then move from casual to deeper discussions. Can I choose multiple theories and create a novel framework? So, two examples I'm going to show you today, one multiculturalism, another task based approach. And these two theses that I saw, these two researchers have dealt with, one researcher has dealt with only task based, other researcher has dealt only with cross cultural aspects, the multicultural aspects. My question is, can you choose multiple theories and create a novel framework? What do you think? Maybe let's have a discussion and then let's take it further from there. I want your opinion. Can you choose multiple theories? Yeah. Or maybe two or three theories and place your arguments based on those theories? Can I have a very maybe casual observations? Your observations, maybe one or two observations so that we move on.
Sir,
Yeah.
according to me, we can have multiple theories, but multiple theories could be discussed. But finally, we have to conclude with only one theory, sir. Just we have to apply only one theory finally and give our conclusion as a and the research. Rather than multiple theories, I don't think so it will work out, sir.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Because,
Thank you. Yeah.
yes, sir.
Yeah. Please go ahead. Go ahead, Benazir. Yeah.
Because having multiple theories put in forward, we might not reach the point, the problem area, it cannot be solved because we apply theory in order to bring in a conclusion for the problem that we're going to solve. So it requires only one theory, right, to kind of
Yeah.
bring in a solution.
Okay.
Even though we have many theories cut into it, finally we have to a short, like a broader area should be sure, like the widened area should be consolidated and bring into one particular ending, right? So we cannot
Okay.
have multiple theories applied, as far as I know, sir.
Okay. Wonderful. Okay. That's a
Thank you.
transient observation. Transient
Thank you, sir.
observation. Any other different observations?
We can have various areas. For example, in multiculturalism we can have different areas, so ethnoculture, counterculture, subculture. Yes, I agree, but applying theory also, cultural materialism, new historicism, they are the cultural theories, but bringing in putting in all the theories into one aspect, I don't think so it will work out, sir, for me.
You are right. You are right. I'll just what you call one of the fundamental premises of my
Yes.
argument today. Actually, I wanted to uh, focus on that, but let me now clarify.
Okay,
I
thank you, sir.
think, yeah, thank you very much for your feedback. See, that was a wonderful point made by Benazir. Two things. One, when you are discussing a field which is very broad, and if you are following an interpretist approach, an approach of interpreting, as I told you the other day, every text has hidden layers of meaning, multi layered meaning which is camouflaged in the text, and to pull out those meanings based on one theoretical lens itself will take a long time, say about 4 years, to entirely understand, to unravel the the hidden layers or the hidden gems. So this is one approach which the literary fraternity follow, because I know all literary fraternity who apply any one particular theoretical lens to dig deeper. Okay, Benazir. And secondly, when you are talking about applied fields like ELT, where it is based on practicing research, there are fundamentally three broad theories. One is cognitive, and the other is constructivist, and the other is socio-construct. Broad spectrum. When it comes to ELT research, of course you can. I'll still clarify my point. When you use one particular theory and make a very deeper impactful study of 3 or 4 voluminous works, there you can't apply many theories and complete your work. But when you are taking an applied theory, for example task based approach, and I mean carrying out your research, there may be certain limitations that your task based approach may not fulfill. So you will look at other theories which might help you to overcome the limitation. In those cases, you will bring an interface of 2 or 3 theories in applied research. And this is what scientific fraternity does. A. B. Another important thing. In literature, we use one particular theory to dwell deeper and deeper into the text. But in applied field, you can borrow a theory from a different field. For example, from medical humanities. For example, psychology, which can be applied in ELT. I'll give you a better example to clearly enunciate my point. One, let us take psychoanalytic theory, and let me show you how to apply this theory. Let us say I'm going to take psychoanalytic theory and I'm going to do a literature based research, and I'm going to do an ELT based research. In literature based research, I'm going to use psychoanalytic theory to study Bharati Mukherjee's novels. I don't have much idea about literature, but I'm giving you a broad overview based on my research knowledge, not based on my subject knowledge, because my subject knowledge in literature is quite shallow. So, first, I'm choosing Bharati Mukherjee to read psychoanalysis. Okay. Two, this is my ELT research. Two, now I'm just going to language teaching research. I am using uh, psychological theory, a psychological theory to understand the problems encountered by students in the classroom. So please follow my example carefully. Now, I use, for example, if I use psychoanalytic approach, there are different schools of psychoanalytic approach, starting from Sigmund Freud and Lacan. If I just go on, there are various schools with various tenets, with various principles, slightly contradicting the other. So what I'll do is I'll use only certain variables from Sigmund Freud, only certain variables. For example, the ego and superego, to give an elementary example, and see how Bharati Mukherjee's novels, how my characteristics reflect those traits. Those traits. If I do that very deeply, that may take a long time for me to explore my author in that deeper dimension. In 4 years, I may come out with a deeper understanding based on a psychoanalytic lens. Then this is my EL, this is my literature research. Okay, now I am using the same psychoanalysis to approach ELT research, students' behavior in the classroom. Now, I am just looking at what are the variables. When I list my variables, those variables are not enough for me, which has been formulated by Sigmund Freud. That's not enough in my current context. So, I will borrow certain theories from medical humanities and other fields and look at those psychological principles to understand my student behavior better. So, I will design or club 2 or 3 theories to overcome those limitations. So, my ELT research will be based on interface of theories, and my literature research will be based on a deeper understanding of one particular theory. Am I clear? Am I making myself clear through this example?
Yes, sir. Yes.
So I hope I have made my point very clear about the third aspect of, can I choose multiple theories and create a novel framework? So far, we have answered 4 questions. How to go with assumptions? How would you define your theory? And then, can you make repeated observations of a single theory? Well, that depends on the field of study. 4, can I choose multiple theories and create a novel framework? Again, that depends on your field. Now, what are the benefits of using multiple theories? For example, communicative language teaching, task based language teaching. The greatest benefit is each theory may have a limitation. When you use multiple theories, it will help you to overcome the limitation that you might encounter. So you will understand what I mean by that when I show you the sample. So this is my 5th question I want to address. Now, this is a very, very important point. Now, when you use either a single theory or a combination of theories, one important question you should ask yourself is, how have other researchers used that particular theory? Or how have other researchers used a combination of those theories? So the clear strategies: go to thesis databases. I'm sure every researcher who is working on the lines that you are working has used theories which are similar to yours. So how have they used the theories? So how have other researchers used the particular theory that you are going to use? Please see that. Okay, and then find out, are there possibilities for interdisciplinary and multidisciplinary research? Now, to answer this particular question, in the both in the ELT and the language teaching discipline, okay, let me give you another example. During one of my Q&A sessions at one particular college, I came across a question asked by a researcher. She was actually using, I just took my previous example from that argument. She was using a psychological theory to study a particular author. And she asked me how, as a literature candidate, I'm reading a particular author, I am reading a particular novel through a psychological lens. Are there any possibilities for interdisciplinary research? Are there any possibilities for multidisciplinary research theory? So she asked me. And that was quite a challenging question to respond. But when I reflected on that, I felt yes, there are definitely a lot of possibilities. Because I told her, when you read a particular work based on the psychological approaches and come out with certain new findings or understand the author better, you are only documenting your view. But if you look at those particular theories, or as a practicing teacher, she's a practicing teacher for teaching literature, or how she can apply those theories to understand students understanding better, maybe she can make it interdisciplinary by clubbing the theoretical premises even with ELT research. And this is a beautiful blend, because you can see certain research designs. Some people cater only to literature research, some people formulate research designs to ELT, but there are certain researchers who come out with a perfect interface or a blend between literature and ELT, and literature candidates do that. Because I think I just gave you this example in my previous class. One researcher who I knew from New College, she was dealing with Amitav Ghosh, and she used on how to teach that literature piece to the students through an intervention approach, through an intervention design to understand Amitav Ghosh better. So the research of that researcher is a blend of both theory and apply. Okay, I believe that I'm slightly moving on to a digression here, but let me come back to the point. So, and then look at the next question. Have I engaged in the literary review of theories? Have I engaged in a literary review of theories? So to stop the monotony, now I will show you a particular research. And let us now see all these questions which I was addressing to you. Are they addressed by the researcher? Shall we go to the dissertation now? Okay, I'll go to the dissertation now on task-based language teaching. See, I'm showing you this particular theory, and I'm going to show you whatever I have discussed and whatever I am going to discuss on how it is applied, how it is applied as a design, how it is applied as a research design. See, this particular researcher is writing the second chapter, and she says theoretical background and related literature. And the theory that she is choosing is task-based language teaching. Please carefully follow it. Maybe let's have a discussion about this. So, introduction. In the introduction, she defines what task-based language teaching is. What are the characteristics of task? So, she just gives an introduction. And then moving on, she is discussing about speaking skills and task-based language teaching. So, she defines what are speaking skills, the importance of speaking skills very generally, and she moves on from macro to micro. So she's using a theory, and she's focusing her theory based on her skill. In literature, you are moving from the concepts of the theory to the author. The focus is from the concepts of the theories to the author. All right. So she is now, the researcher is talking about speaking skills generally. This is called application of theory. So she discusses about speaking skills in the context of language teaching. Then, thirdly, she is using the term that we discussed in the last class, the micro and the macro aspects of speaking. And then she is focusing on the micro skills that she is focusing on her research. And she's correlating the theory with the micro skills. That is very important. What is your topic? Does your topic and theory have a clear alignment with each other? Am I making myself clear?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes.
Yeah. So she is moving on to micro skills. So micro skills and is correlating with her theory. This is what the fourth thing the researcher does. Then moving on, she just goes to the review of literature on speaking skill. Generally, what others have told about speaking, but she does not talk about generally speaking. She will correlate speaking only with task-based approaches. Okay, because that is research. Because your entire research literature on speaking will be all encompassing and needless. So if you are doing on prosodic features of speaking, you will focus only in context with task based approach. So when you are approaching any particular author, you will approach the author, as Benazir said a few minutes ago, based only on those premises that you are arguing, not based on all the premises. So she is doing that. Then let us see what she's doing. Then she's moving on to task based specifically and looking at the previous research on task based, the previous theories. How have other researchers studied or approached this theory? So she says how other researchers have approached in many pages. Who started task based approach first? Who are the chief proponents of task based approach? So she goes on to describe all the aspects of task based, and then she moves on to what tasks are, what kind of tasks she is going to give. And when she talks about the kinds of tasks that are existing in literature, those are the tasks that she will be using for her research. Do you get my point? So researchers, whatever I am discussing today is not only for coursework. I think if it is only for coursework, then you can read it yourself. So whatever you do for coursework is correlated with the larger picture, with the larger aim of your research. So this particular researcher goes on to describe all the different aspects, and then she talks about the uses. And then I told you about every research or every theory will have limitations. She will not only talk about characteristics, but she will also talk about the limitations of those theory. So she'll talk about the limitations of those particular theory. So this is how you write the theoretical background, and that is why you need to have a clear grounding of what theory is and how to apply theory. So now this is a very important aspect. Now I just want to ask you a question for deeper reflection and for answering me. Okay. Now I have highlighted one particular question. Can you answer this question? Anybody else? Can you answer this question? Just try to answer this question. You have all chosen theories. How do you feel that particular theory that you have chosen? And it is perfectly fine to choose many theories, especially people who are working in SLA, second language acquisition. Could be a combination of 3 or 2 theories. You can, of course, do that. Now, you should write a strong rationale on how the theory that you have chosen will help you to understand your author better, will help you to understand your research better, will help you understand your practice better. So I want all the 4 of you to make an attempt to answer this question. Now, you understood now what theoretical research is. It is based on certain principles. You also told me in my previous class what is the theory you have chosen. But now my specific question is, how does that theory fit into the ambit of your study? Why do you think it fits? Maybe a very simple answer. Then we will move on to the other aspects of theoretical research design. Because this is just for breaking the monotony. I just want to give myself a break. And in your perspective also, it helps to follow me better when I start my lecture again, or else it will be a kind of monotonous long talk.
Sir, is this the section where I actually relate the theory to application? to
Yes,
my exact
absolutely.
environment in which I am, or the context in which my research is taking place.
Yeah.
So how I relate the theory with the context.
Yes. Absolutely, sir. Absolutely. So, yes, last I remember the last class you discussed about few SLA theories, second language acquisition theories. Sir, are you justified at this point of time in your preliminary reading that these theories will help me to understand and approach my field better? ha- uh, are you convinced that these theories that I have chosen, these principles, will help me to understand my field better? Are you convinced about that?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Yeah, yes. Then it's perfectly fine. Can others make a brief, short attempt at this answer? You know what? You know what's the theory? What? Why? What is the rationale for you to choose that particular theory? Very briefly.
Sir, on based
Yeah.
on literature review, people had worked on many other criteria of that same novelist, Zadie
Yeah.
Smith. So, in order to have a major difference, I chose a broader topic called multiculturalism. I have to find a deeper sense from it, sir, and that's why
What?
I chose that particular topic, and it
Oh.
definitely fits in.
Fits in. Wonderful. So, Benazir, you believe that using the multicultural lens to approach ZD will help you to understand the hidden layers of meaning that are camouflaged in the text. Am I right?
Oh, yes, sir. Yes,
Yeah.
definitely.
Wonderful. Wonderful. And it's
Thank you, sir.
quite convincing. Yeah. Okay. So thank you for those responses. Let's move on to other questions. So what I'm just doing here today is I'm only raising questions today throughout my talk. Probably the remaining, half an hour or so, whatever. I'm only raising questions for you to reflect, and I'm answering those questions. The questions that I raise. Theoretical research is it's a very important paradigm in research, regardless of your chosen field of endeavor. Say it be qualitative, quantitative, or mixed method, or only theoretical approach is itself a research. To approach a particular author or to approach a particular field. So theory is just the entire blueprint of a building. It's the spine of your work. So without theory, your work doesn't exist. That is why I invest so much of time for for this kind of a theoretical chapter, because I know a lot of researchers who just pick any particular theory and fit it into the context of the study. It doesn't fit well. It's like transplantation. It doesn't fit well. You should have a strong rationale. Okay, this particular theory will help my context better, will help to read my author better, will help my practice better, will help my pedagogy better, will help me to have better epistemological or ontological perspective. So you should be thoroughly convinced, and you should have a strong rationale. Okay, this is my rationale. If I take this theory and approach my practice, definitely I can contribute something to the field. So that is why we're investing so much of time. So let's go ahead and reflect on the other questions. So, so reflect on other questions. Now, look at the other questions. Look at the next question raised. Can I come up with prepositions and concepts to answer how and why? What do I mean with can I come up with prepositions and concepts? What I mean is, I showed you two samples of how previous researchers have worked on task-based approach. But can you come out with new prepositions? What do I mean by new prepositions? With a different context. Maybe other researchers have spoken in the context of discourse management, in the context of interactive communication. But my context is different, teaching pronunciation. So, can I come out with new prepositions and concepts to answer the how and why question? So, does that particular theory help me to approach my new area and come out with new prepositions? What do I mean by new proposition? I'll give you another example. See, you may read a theory. Okay, theory. Researcher A will understand the theory and interpret the theory in one way. Researcher B would have understood the theory and interpreted the theory in another way. Researcher C would have interpreted the theory in another way. and each one of them are right, because we are not working on pure mathematics. It's interpretive analysis. And when we bring our interpretations are all based on the rich responses, or all based on the reader response theory. We all go with a set of assumptions, we all go with a set of presumptions, we all go with a set of experiences, we all go with a set of ideologies, we all go with a set of pedagogical premises if you are a practicing teacher. And your understanding always depends on your experiences. So regardless of what A, B, C, and D has said, are you taking any new propositions or new concepts or new understanding about the theory? And if you do so, then you can answer your research questions better. How and why? Okay, that is what I have reworded in the next question. Can I interpret old data and give it a new meaning? Sometimes when we talk about exhausted fields in theory, same theory, if you look at 10 researchers, still the 11th researcher, despite 10 research being carried out on the same theory, may come out with very interesting findings based on that particular theory, may come out with new perceptions, and he will look at the old data with a new lens. And this is what a theory tells you. So what you should do as a researcher is, you should choose what your theory is. A. B, you should write the definition for the theory. C, you should write what are the principles of the theory. D, you should take your interpretations of the theory and your propositions of the theory, interpret the theory. And E, see how your theory will fit into the ambit of your research methods. I mean, are you coming out with new findings? So these are some of the questions. Maybe I'll run through the other questions as quick as possible. Now look at this particular question. This is such a wonderful question to reflect. Okay. Well, does the theory has a long pedigree in your discipline? See, what do you mean by long pedigree? There are some theories that has a longer pedigree and some theories that does not have a greater pedigree. What I mean is that if there are a lot of researchers who have time and time again used the same theory, it means that already has an existing pedigree. Your review of literature will be easy. You can write so many pages on review of literature based on what the other authors have said. But you are choosing a niche field, a theory which has not been dealt with in detail, but your review of literature will be a little difficult. So this is one of the limitations that you should remember. So it's always good to choose a theory that has a longer pedigree, but you have to, kind of refine it and repurpose it. So other questions are very common. Does your theory suit your overall aims of the study? So let me not spend a lot of time in some simple questions. Okay. Now this question, let's reflect on this very deeply. I'll highlight these again, questions for self-reflection. Okay. Now, are there different schools? Which school are you using? What do you understand by this question? Now, I think I just gave you the example a little earlier. When I went to a recent, doctoral committee meeting, I came across a researcher who was, approaching her work through the lens of transcendentalism. She takes three. It was some time back, so I don't recollect who the author is. She was a candidate of literature. She has chosen a particular author and she has used transcendentalism in the novels of transcendental outlook in the novels of. But then after the presentation, the question I asked is, when you talk about transcendentalism, there are different schools starting from Ralph Waldo Emerson, Thoreau, and then you have English transcendentalists. You have contemporary schools of transcendentalism, and every school has different tenets. Although the fundamental premises are the same, different offshoots. For example, psychoanalytic theory of Sigmund Freud, offshoot is Lacan, but Lacan will contradict his views. For example, task-based approach. There will be different schools of thought, different writers, different views. Whose view are you? Whose framework are you following? Because you can't follow all the framework. It may take 20 years for you, and yet your work will be incomplete. So please ask yourself this question when you choose theoretical methodology: is that, are there different schools? Forgive my orthographic error here because it was randomly typed. Okay, are there different schools of thought? Which school are you using? Is it contemporary school, or are you using the framework of any particular author? B, how have other researchers using it? See, how are you approaching it differently? And then what are the limitations? So, having reflected on all this, then you select what is the appropriate theory for you. So, this is the first part of my lecture. So, I gave you a lot of questions for you to reflect in theoretical design. By now, I believe that you have a specific idea on how to apply the theoretical design in your research. But if you want to know more about how to apply, then you have to go and read a lot of thesis where a researcher has applied theory about your area. So that's the only way to understand the field better. But right now you need to acquire the nitty gritties of applying. How you are going to apply is different because it's a coursework on understanding designs. So understand the concepts. You can apply it later. So let's just move on to the second part of my talk today. Okay, maybe I'll spend another 15 minutes exactly and stop with that. Okay, now the second part of my lecture today. In order to select the most appropriate and best suited theoretical framework for your dissertation, you have to consider the following guidelines. Let me quote one thing here. I'll show you a particular article. I'll just open that article for you and show you. You can, of course, take that article from the internet, but that is a gold mine. If you go into theoretical research, yeah, there is a particular article called as I applying theoretical framework. Okay, this is the name of the article: understanding, selecting, and integrating a theoretical framework in dissertation research, creating the blueprint for your house. A beautiful metaphor. This is a lovely article which has been written by Cynthia and Ozanlu. Lovely article. Every researcher, regardless of the field of endeavor, should read this because every field will have theoretical framework. And see, look at how beautifully he has worded that: a theoretical framework in dissertation research, creating the blueprint for your house. So, what I am discussing today with you is I am giving you the ingredients for blueprint. We are discussing we are discussing about what are the ingredients that make a perfect theoretical recipe. And for putting those pieces together, each of these questions, each of these questions are the ingredients. And if you understand all these questions, you will have a rough idea. Then you will go and create a blueprint by reading the article. So that is why I said in the initial part of my lecture today, let us not discuss about what's, but it is always better to focus on how. Because it's always better at advanced discussions like this, we should always focus on how. Okay. So in order to select the most appropriate and best suited theoretical framework, consider the following guidelines. I'll very quickly run through these guidelines. First, I am only repeating what I said. I am only reinforcing what I said. I am only recalibrating my earlier views. So I am only encapsulating the essence of my previous discussion. Point A: in theoretical design, you begin your research by identifying your beliefs, your assumptions that might change. So go with a set of beliefs. This is the first guideline. Second guideline: consider several theories that intersect nicely with your epistemological values and broaden your way of thinking about the concepts in your study. So, for applied fields, think about different epistemological values. So, consider several theories Benazir may disagree, but as I said, in fact, I have seen a lot of literature research. I mean, literature-based research which were based on only one particular theory. But as I said, my knowledge in this field is very shallow. So I don't know if there are any researchers who have used an intersection of various theories. But even at Crescent University, I have come across researchers who are working only on feminism, on eco-criticism, or any one particular theory, or I mean from other universities also. So I don't know any particular work. I have to browse and see after my lecture today. So consider several theories. So I don't know if it will fit into literature study. Please consider that. Are you following me? Can I proceed?
Oh, yes, sir. Yes.
Yeah. Question 3. Develop a working knowledge of the theories and understand why each theory is important for you. For this, what I do is I usually draw a tabular column. Okay, I'll show you how. What I do is, suppose I'm going to sit and work on a particular theory. I'll show you what I do. Okay, what I do is, this is what I do. This helps me usually in better understanding of a particular theory. Okay, now let us say I use a particular theory. Okay, any particular theory, and I'll bring the concepts of my theory here. For example, concept 1. For example, let us say I'm working on a particular theory on constructivism. I will use one keyword, constructivism. What are the principles of constructivism? It talks about peer learning. These are some of the variables in my study. So my theory on constructivism will discuss about peer learning. 2. My theory may talk about collaborative approaches to learning. Collaborative approaches. This is how I do. I'm just showing you a sample. Whenever I collaborative approaches, and then constructivism could also focus on autonomy. One of the principles of constructivism is autonomy. Okay. Now what I do is I look at each variable and I will use these terms and make a Google search on articles. So I'll focus on all the principles of this theory. Similarly, if I am working on, let us say I am working on, in literature, I am working on psychoanalytic theory, a very old school of thought. It many variables, elementary example. These are elementary examples. Okay, now I will divide my theory into various, what do you call, words. I'll tabulate each one like that. In the other side, for these concepts, I will make a thorough literary search so I understand my theory better. So this is one way to understand your theory better. Am I making my point clear?
Yeah, yes, sir. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So yeah, this is how you do it. So consider question number 3, 4. Okay, conduct a brief literature review to find support. That's what I showed you now. How you should do it. Break your research area into, sorry, your theory, your theoretical research. Every theory will have principles. For example, task-based approach will have principles. Pre-task, or you can say while task, and then the post-task. What are some of those tasks? And then activities. So break it into these and find literature to support on each of these premises. Point 5. Look at this point 5. I already told you, but this is a very important point. 2 databases, ProQuest thesis database or Sodhganga. If you go to these databases and just type in your design, research design, if it's a theoretical research, multiculturalism, just type the keyword, you will see how other authors have approached multiculturalism. Probably you might find an author who you are working on, probably, who knows, somebody would have approached even Zadie Smith with a multicultural lens. Please see, and it's perfectly okay for you to do it again with a different finding. That's perfectly fine. But please know what has been done in your area in terms of your theoretical design. And then this is what I do. Another thing I'll show you rather than telling you. Consider arguments that oppose your beliefs and theories. For this, what I do is again what are the arguments? Simple elementary example. What I do is again I'll just show you. It helps me to break my ideas into various segments. These are called as a chunking principle in learning. Chief arguments. What are the chief arguments in my theory? Okay, psychoanalysis. Who are the proponents? The proponents are Freud, Sigmund Freud. Okay, and then Lacan, Jacques Lacan, and then probably I may discuss about any particular author because I don't know the other authors frankly. So I can. So what did he say? Principles. He's one side proponents, the other side what are his principles? What are his principles? And then now I'll type another thing called contradictions. Now each one has said something, but I have understood the key debates here. Fruits, Lacan, key debates in the field. But every key debate will have contradictions. People agreeing and disagreeing with one another. People debunking others' opinion. People deconstructing others' ideologies. So what are the contradictions in my field? Point by point, I'll make an observation. And then I'll go on with my interpretations or to those contradictions. This is what I roughly do. As a matter of fact, 3 hours I can write an entire theoretical framework for any kind of research paper. 2 days I can write for any kind of theory people give. I can prepare a tentative blueprint on theoretical design. So after my interpretations, here I will, just go on. How am I going to approach it differently? My approach. This is another way of approaching your theory. So look at the 7th point. Apply answers to how the theory connects to your problem. The purpose, significance, and design. Now, how am I going to look at my approach? Others' approach. Please understand my point. If you look at any one thing as a larger piece, it will be overwhelming for you to do research. But if you break theories into these kind of concepts, it helps in easy understanding. What are the others? How have others approached it? Okay, and then how my approach is different. So you justify that. Then probably still you have other things to do. Okay, how does it fit into your problem? How does your fit into your problem or your rationale? Okay, what is your rationale? Now are you justified? So if you create a rough tentative variables like this to discuss any theories, then you will understand theories. So my final part of my lecture is concept mapping for literature review. Again, I am only reinforcing what I said. Guideline 1, identify your beliefs. Guideline 2, consider several theories that intersect with your epistemological values. 3, developing a working knowledge, whatever I have told you. 4, do a brief literature review on your theories. 5, go and visit some dissertation databases. 6, look at the chief arguments in the field. 7, think about how you are going to apply, and you will have a clear understanding of what theoretical research is. And finally, what I have done is for you to read it a little later. I have given a checklist here for integrating a theoretical framework and the checklist has say about 10 questions. Sorry, 15 questions are there. Maybe I have numbered it wrongly because those are typo errors. But please take a look at those questions and the checklist. So, dear researchers, today I was focusing on theoretical research. I raised a number of questions today, and I hope I have given you a bird's eye view on how to apply a particular theory or what theoretical research is. And what I said is just the tip of the iceberg. Ultimately, I can only provide you the spark, but it all boils down to the researcher to go read a lot of voracious reading in the field, look at some groundbreaking articles on how others have applied theory and how theories have to be applied in the context of your research. So today we discussed about a theoretical approach which beautifully fits into the ambit of both, uh, you know, qualitative, quantitative, and mixed methods designs. In my next class, I'll move on to quantitative designs and deal with intervention research. And I'll also deal with one qualitative design called as ethnographic research. So next class, I'll discuss with two simple designs. So with this, I think we can wrap up. And if you have any questions, you can ask me. Have I made myself very clear when it comes to theoretical research?
Yes, sir, it was very clear, sir. Yes. Yeah. I've understood how to approach these theories, how to look at these theories. And then first, I think it's important to understand, to go into various theories related to the topic, and then try to cull out whatever that is, has relevance to our topic, and then try to break it down, and then see how they are related. I think that is very useful today.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well said, sir. So yeah, wonderfully distilled the essence of it. Thank you, sir. So
Yeah.
Yes, sir, you want to say something? Yeah.
This particular Word document, would you be able to get that particular
Definitely.
material?
I'll just share. Yeah, I'll share all these questions which are raised today, and I'll also share the supporting files. And if you make a Google search, probably three terminologies: one, guidelines for qualitative research, guidelines for quantitative research. I think these two beautiful articles are available online. Besides the ones I'm sharing today. So I'll share these questions which are raised today.
Yes.
So as you said, it is true that if you really understand these questions, it will help us to approach a theory better. So it's not about what, because there's so much of literature, so much for us to read as advanced learners, but it's always better to know how to do something and focus a lot on application. Because these are the difficulties I encountered when I started my research. I spent a lot of time actually understanding the nitty gritties of how to actually carry out the research, and 3 or 4 years I spent actually quite frivolously, to tell you quite frankly. And later I just understood that people should really focus on clear matrices. From then on, I focused on clear matrices on how to approach things, chunk information, break it into simple pieces, and then focus on one thing at a time. And after that, it was quite a fascinating journey. And that journey I am just sharing with you. So thank you, sir. I'll just catch up with each one of you in the next class. If anybody has any questions related to applying theories, you can raise them here.
I just have one small clarification.
Yeah, sure.
So is there any specific rules with regard to the theories that we should refer to, sir? Because we normally come across only prominent theories, from the earliest theorists to somewhere in 20th century.
Yeah.
Now there are some latest arrivals are there, some recent theories that are emerging trends. So where do we go for those details? I suppose want some recent words on the topic. How do I search for those materials?
Wonderful, sir. Wonderful. That's brilliant. That's a remarkable question. Now I can just give you focused answer Please repeat your topic once again, sir. What's your topic?
Yeah, my topic is enhancing a speaking skill. That is
Speaking
what
skill.
I have. Yes,
All right.
speaking
What's your
skill.
theory, sir?
Theory is, I have main theory is immersion and scaffolding.
Okay, okay, all right. Now I'll just give you a specific answer to the question that you raised. So you have taken speaking skills and you have used immersion theory and scaffolding theory.
Yes.
Apparently, you can't focus on speaking without touching on these two elements. So it's quite natural that your choice of theory is quite judicious. It's quite judicious because it's such a uh, without focusing on that, you can't carry out your research. However, your question is, how can I identify niche theories related to my field? Now, in terms of looking for niche theories, you should always look at other disciplines. This is the Western practice. For example, I know certain research. I'll just give you an example. A particular researcher is working on reading. Okay, particular researcher is working on reading, and she discusses about the sub skills of reading, the skimming and scanning approaches, the top down approaches, or the bottom up approach. These are so much discussed, but if you look at European research in the European context, they look at the recent cognitive theories in terms of approaching dyslexic readers, and they come out with certain terms in medical humanities, medical theories. So they pick theories from there. So one way, there are many ways, I'll discuss on that one thing at a time. One way is to look at interdisciplinary fields which are very closest to you. A. The second way to find out niche theories is to look at, because yours is an educational research, to look at the field of psychology, educational psychology. If you look at educational psychology, broad schools of thought, cognitivism, constructivism, behaviorism. If you look at these three schools of thought, what is your variable? If your variable is on enhancing the performance, then performance oriented theories, you may just google it. Or if you are going to notice the motivational aspects of your learners, for example, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, it's a very old theory, but what are the reason theories in psychology on motivation? Just google reason theories on motivation. So that is skip 2. Looking for reasoned, looking for cross disciplinary fields. Third field, I would say this is the most specific answer I'm giving to your question. The specific answer is go to applied linguistics. Go to applied linguistics. And if you just go to applied linguistics, and because yours is on speaking, if you just go to discourse analysis, reason theories on discourse analysis, there are two kinds of discourses: written discourse and spoken discourse. There are a lot of reason theories on discourse analysis. So look at the field of linguistics and see what are the reason theories. See if you can pick some threads or new theories, at least one theory from a different field, and apply those concepts in the ambit of your work. Perhaps you could combine these theories. I hope I have answered your question, sir.
Yeah, fantastic. So thank you, sir.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. All right. All right. I think we'll wrap up with this. So thank you, everybody. I'll just meet you in the next class. Shall we schedule? I mean, can I schedule the next class day after tomorrow?
It's fine,
Is it okay
sir.
for
Fine.
you?
Fine,
Tomorrow I have a class at this time, so I have scheduled a different session. So can we have day after tomorrow? Is that okay for you?
That's fine for me. Yes.
Okay. Okay. Is it okay for others? Yeah, Charles sir is
Yes,
fine.
sir. Yes, sir.
Lines
Yes,
fine.
sir.
Yes, sir.
Lavanya,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Benazir? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody. So I'll catch up with you in the next class. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you so much, sir. Thanks a lot.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
sir.
sir.